Hello everybody, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I am building the Cosmic Cargo model rocket kit from Estes. This just came out in the summer of 2024. First it came out as an educator pack where you can only get them 12 at a time. They've since released it as an individually packaged model. If you've seen my video on the Cosmic R.E.A.R, this is essentially the same rocket except with a payload section. So this goes together really easily. You don't have to paint it. For the most part, you don't even have to glue much on this thing. Let's go ahead and open this up. Okay, grab our instructions here and we'll make sure that we've got everything. Okay, so here's our main body tube, and it said this is essentially the same as in the Cosmic R.E.A.R. All right, but then we've got a payload bay here, and that's held together with this coupler, and then we've got the nose cone that goes on top of it. All right, inside we have a small parts package. Alright, we've got a fin can, 2 halves, motor retaining ring, parachute, shock cord, three fins, and then the 2 little pieces here, don't lose them. Alright, but that's our shock cord anchor. So it looks like we have everything that we need, and we will get started here as soon as I clear some of this away. The first thing we'll do is assemble the fin can, and this does not require any glue for the most part, certainly no plastic cement. If you do want to glue this, you can, and I'll show you some points here at the end of the video where you can modify this to glue it together. But for now, I'm just going to assemble it like the instructions. So we're going to take the 2 halves of the fin can here. The threads go toward the aft, toward the rear of the rocket. And here we just want to mate the little pegs with the little holes and then squash that all together so we don't have any gap in the seam. Okay, and then we're going to add the motor retaining ring. All right, it doesn't have to go all the way up at this point. Oh, actually, we need to take that back off again. First, put the fins on. Doesn't matter which way you put them, however you like. All right, but we're just going to take these 2 little flanges here, and those go into the larger holes, and then you push them forward. And the aft end of the root edge here has to come up beyond the threads. All right, put in the other 2 fins the same way. Now add the retainer. Okay, moving on in the instructions here. We're going to join this to the body tube. All right, and if you've built the Cosmic R.E.A.R, everything we've done so far has been identical, except the color's a little bit different on the fin can. All right, so we're going to push this up, and so that these 2 little spring flanges there end up in the 2 little rectangular holes. And so you just push this up and those should lock into place. The instructions indicate if you want, you can wrap a piece of clear tape around this for extra strength. And that's not a bad idea, especially if you happen to get your nose cone kind of stuck up here, which occasionally happens. When that does happen, sometimes when the ejection charge goes off, it separates here. So if you want to add tape here, and if you want some color to it, you could use some electrical tape or some vinyl tape as well. Next, we're going to assemble the shock cord and shock cord mount. Okay, so here, this is the shock cord mount. And inside the tube, this little retainer is going to slip on like this. Now the retainer in cross section has got a curve to that, and that curved surface should go up against the inside. So when this is assembled, the kind of bullet looking piece here is going to go into the square hole there, like this, and then this is going to go in underneath it inside the tube, but this is going to slide in like this and clip into place, and that will sandwich the tube between the two halves there. Now if I can get this back off again. Alright, so now we'll just put this in here. Okay, now down inside the tube, I'm going to slide this in. Now you really can't see it very well. You'll hear and feel it click. Alright, now if we look down in there, okay, you should be able to just barely see that held in place there. Now we're going to take the shock cord, and on one end, go ahead and tie a double knot in it, so that one knot is directly over the other. Okay, now once you tighten that down, remove any excess here. Don't cut it all the way back to the knot, but really close to it. Give it about 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters there. Okay, now go to the other end, and this is going to feed into the mount. And we're kind of angling it down into the tube like this. Just carefully feed that in. And now if we look down the top once more, we've got the shock cord inside there, and you can just grab that with a finger. Alright, and carefully pull that up. Now before that gets all the way in there, I do recommend putting just a little bit of white glue or wood glue on that, just to help keep it in place. There we go, just a little dab there. And then we're going to pull that inside, like that. So you might have a little bit of rubber showing there, but not too much. And if you have any excess glue, then just wipe that off with a finger or a tissue. Okay, so everything up to this point has been about the same as with building the cosmic ray. Here's the difference. All right, so now we have a payload bay, and they show that we're going to put the coupler in here like this. All right, and they show to use clear tape around that. The alternative is that you can glue this, and this is a case here where I'm going to show you this right away. If you're going to glue this in, you either need tube type plastic model cement, or you need the gel type super glue. Okay, the runny super glue or the brush-on plastic cements won't work with this because the cardboard just absorbs them. They don't actually attach anything. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and use the tube type plastic cement. Got a little excess on there, clean that off. Okay, now here I'm going to run a bead of glue just on the inside. Now you don't want this dripping, but you can be fairly generous with it. Okay, now you're going to have the end without the loop on it here going into the tube. So this just pops in like this. Just kind of rotate it back and forth as you put it in and let it seat in the glue well. Okay, and now we're just going to let that dry for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. The glue on the coupler now has set so I can work with it. And the nose cone here is just going to push inside here like this. Now on mine there's a little bit of what's called flash in the loop there. Now since we're not using the loop for the parachute, you don't have to take this out, but it tends to fall out on its own after a while anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. If it doesn't just push out, you can use a hobby knife and just carefully cut that out without cutting your fingers. they're better than I thought it was. There we go. Okay, now this is just going to fit by friction into the top here, which means you actually want a lot of friction. This is way too loose. If I were to fly this like the way it is now, as soon as that ejection charge went off, this would come flying out, and we'd be coming down in multiple pieces. That's not a good thing. All right, so in the instructions, it shows wrapping clear tape around this to slightly increase its diameter and make it fit better. I prefer to use masking tape for this job. You can use either. All right, but I'm just going to put a piece of masking tape on this. And as loose as mine was, I'm going to start with a full circumference of it. If it's already pretty snug, you might start with half of a circumference. All right, I'm going to try that. Now that is really snug. It might be too snug. So I'm going to back this off just a little bit, because I don't want to have it so snug that I break the rocket trying to get it in or out. But I don't want it loose, in which case we lose the nose cone. Okay, so we're getting there. There we go. Okay, now this may change with the weather, so if you built this in like cold, dry conditions, but you fly it in hot, humid conditions, like we have here in Arkansas, you may find that this is expanded and is too tight, or maybe it's contracted if you're in colder weather. Now it's too loose. So always check this before you go to fly. All right, now for the parachute here. If you've seen my other videos, you know what's coming next. All right. So the instructions indicate that we need to put this on by tying it to the loop here on the coupler. All right. Those of you who've seen my other videos know that I don't like to tie parachutes on permanently. Now if we go with the instructions, what we'll do is open up our parachute here. And you'll have to do this for both ways. You should have one shroud line that goes through the middle, and then one loop on each side. And so I'm going to take those and hook them around one finger. I'm going to pinch the sheet here between thumb and forefinger of my other hand, so I'm in the middle of the sheet. All right, and then I'm going to pull on all the shroud lines here. And if they made this right, they should all come together. All right, now this is actually off a little bit, and it's because one of these shroud lines is longer than the other one, so it looks loose right here. Now if it really bothers you, you can go in and shorten that shroud line a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it. All right, it's not going to be that off-putting. Okay, so here we're going to take the loops, and we're going to pass those through the eyelet loop here in the coupler. All right, you want to always be holding on to something here so they don't change length on you much. Okay, and now I'm going to open up this big loop here, and now I do have to let go. I'm going to pass the entire parachute through. All right, so now I've got the loops there, and then if I pull this, these loops that are currently around my finger will tie down onto a knot here. Now I'm not going to do that because I don't like to. So I'm going to take this back off. Okay, now once more I'm going to find my shroud lines, loop them on my finger here. Okay, and try to get these at least close to matching, like that. And now I'm going to take a snap swivel. Now this is not included in the kit. You can get these at just about any place that you get fishing supplies. And here we're going to take the swivel side, so the side that does not have the opening loop on it there. We're going to pass those shroud line loops through there. Open those up again, so that now we have a loop here. We've got our snap swivel hanging. Take the whole snap swivel, pass it through the loop, pull the loops down toward the end, and now pull that tight. Okay, and we can recheck. All right, about the same as we had before. If you found that it moved, you can just loosen this up and try again. Once you have it where you want it, go ahead and take a little dab of white glue or wood glue and just put it right on there. It doesn't take much, just a little tiny amount, which may be all I have here. Here we go. All right, that's no longer tiny. All right, wipe off excess if you have excess. Okay, and now this can simply clip on to that loop here. And this is the critical thing. The size of the snap swivel doesn't matter for the parachute, but the loop here that we actually snap on has to be big enough that it can move freely here. If it binds in one direction or another, you need a bigger snap swivel. Okay, now I'm going to temporarily take this off. If you tied it on, you can't do that. Okay, and now I'm going to take the other end of my shock cord here, pass it through, tie a double knot or 2 half hitches on it, snug it down. Okay, now once you've got that snug in all directions, cut this free end back to about 1/4 inch or 5 to 6 millimeters here. And that way it can't get up between the coupler here and the body tube, which could cause it not to eject properly, and we don't want that. Okay. You can also add just a little dab of the white glue or wood glue here to that knot. And that'll just help that knot keep from coming loose. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and reattach this. Okay, now structurally this is it. This is all put together. But I'm going to wait till these little glue dabs dry and we'll come back, put the whole thing together and talk about options for decoration and for glue. The glue on the parachute and the shock cord is mostly dry, and what I'm going to do now is show you some optional ways of gluing this model together. Now, I did show you how to do it up here on the payload bay. I recommend doing that regardless of what you do with the rest of it. It's just going to be safer that way. Okay, but down here, if we decide that we want to glue the fins on and glue the fin can to the body tube, we can do that. So I'm going to first unscrew the motor mount retainer there. Okay, and we'll go ahead. For the first one here, I'm going to take off one of these fins. It doesn't matter which. That one's really tight. I'm going to save it for the next part. All right, we'll use this one. Okay, so one way you can do this is use a tube type plastic cement. And you're going to put the cement right along those 2 tabs here, but just there. And the reason for that is if you get a lot of this tube type cement, it squishes out everywhere. All right, now we're just going to put those right back in the holes and move that forward. All right, now you got a little blob there, just leave it alone. Once it dries, it won't bother anything and you'll hardly notice it. All right, but notice I did that really quickly, and that's something you want to do because all plastic cements work by partially melting the plastic, and what can happen is if you move too slowly, it may get stuck before you get the fin all the way up here. So you want to stick that in quickly, move it up forward quickly. All right, the other 2 ways of doing this, you'll need some brush-on type cement. Now this is a much runnier consistency. Okay, and here I'm just going to paint it right along the seam of the fin with the fin can and allow the glue to be drawn in by capillary action here. And we'll do both sides. Now, if you notice there's actually quite a bit there on the side. It's fine. Don't touch it, don't smear it, don't do anything like that. Just let it dry and then it'll hardly be noticeable. All right, do the same thing on the other edge here. Okay, so that's the second way. The third way is go ahead and pull another fin off again. Okay, and here again we're going to use the brush on cement. This will start like we did with the other one, so we're just going to put it along the fin tabs here. But then I'm also going to add it to the root edges back here. And again, the trick here is to get it in and slide it up immediately. Just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to let this dry. Do not put the motor retainer cap on there until those glues have completely dried. All of my glue has dried, and now we're ready to put this together. Right before we do, I do want to make mention that if you want to decorate this, it does not come with any of its own decals, and so you have to supply your own. You can use permanent markers or brush-on paints and such on this. If you want to use spray paint and you want to keep the color of the plastic parts, I recommend spray painting both of the tubes before you do anything else with the rocket. So before you put anything together, go ahead and spray paint the tubes, let those dry completely, and then complete the rocket as shown here. Now, if we're ready for launch, go ahead and first make sure everything is attached, and then we're going to fold the parachute. Now, you can ask 10 different Rocketeers how to fold a parachute, and you'll get 10 different answers. My preference is to fold this into a triangle of about this size here, and then take the shroud lines and kind of loop them up into the middle of the triangle here. All right, you might want to adjust it a little bit. You don't want it coming out the top, and the snap swivel should be just on the bottom. Now I'm going to fold the two sides of my triangle over the shroud lines. I'm going to fold the tip up and then turn this into a cylinder like this. And the idea here is that this will slide easily in and out of the rocket. Now if you're just storing this, you don't need to do this next part, but if you're actually getting ready for launch, take some recovery wadding, about 3 sheets if you're using Estes, all right, and just loosely crumple each sheet into a ball. Don't just take 3 sheets and crumple them all at once. Stuff those down inside. We'll take another one here, crumple it up. And what we're doing is forming a kind of a loose piston so that the ejection charge gases will push this upward without burning the parachute or the shock cord. Alright, so now, and sometimes it helps to have an extra hand. We can usually do this. We're going to stuff the shock cord down inside. I don't recommend like winding this around your finger and then shoving it down. It's actually better to just kind of randomly stuff it in. Alright, now my parachute's going to go in like this. And that should slide easily. If it's getting hung up, you need to try again. And then finally, put the last bits in there and make sure we don't get anything caught between the tube and the coupler here. If you're feeling a lot of resistance, there's probably something caught in there. Alright, now we're going to do a shake test. So if I turn it upside down and shake it, this should not come out like this. So to fix that, we're going to add a little bit of masking tape. And I usually start with 1/3 to 1/2 of a circumference. You don't necessarily have to wrap the whole thing. Alright, don't tape that on there. Make sure there's no stickiness getting onto your shock cord or your shroud lines. Alright, we'll stuff that back down in there. Try again. Okay, and then give it a shake. That looks like it's holding pretty well. Okay. Now all we need to do is put a motor in here, and I'm not going to show that. I don't have any live motors available at the moment. You'll put your motor in there, screw this on firmly, but not so tight that you can't get it back out again. All right, and then just before you're ready to launch, install an igniter into the motor, and you're ready to go. So that's my completed Cosmic Cargo sans decorations. Hope you had a good time building this. The actual building time outside of doing video stuff is only about half an hour. So this is a great project for groups where you only have them for a short period of time. Have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.